This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is October 28th, 2024. Welcome to the podcast. I wanted to do one more before the election on U.S. policy on the presidential election. Now, we have together learned a lot of things by just observing this presidential election cycle. And I'm hoping that you guys were inspired to even do some more checking. So, this podcast is about my closing debate remarks that you should consider. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. My podcast is really about laying out facts and details that don't get talked about a lot that I think that people should focus on before they make a choice for whoever they want to become president. So I wanted to talk today about celebrities, the two most important issues, and where are the moderates on both sides. So let's start with celebrities. And I want to include General Kelly on this because when we are watching the candidates get up and talk, the last couple of months, I see celebrities, I see employees who worked for a president, and you have to wonder, does that really affect how someone votes in the presidential election? And is that fair to the candidate that you have someone who worked for you who didn't agree with you, and if that's the case, they can quit? So during the Trump administration, 93% of who he put into those cabinet positions, they quit. So when you disagree with somebody, that's fair. Now, is it fair for them to come on national TV and say, yep, this guy's terrible, here's what he said? And both sides do it. This cycle, this time around, seems like it's more on the Republican side of them criticizing President Trump. That's what I see on the media and all of those things. And nobody's talking about the fact that they are uh, coming after him that way and not talking about his policies. On the Democratic side, it's about how Vice President Harris really hasn't given us any policies. And no one is talking about the fact, except for Fox News, of course, that we need to know what the candidate is going to do once they get into office. But the celebrity impact for her is that she's had Michelle Obama, uh, she's had that musician, I can't think of his name, he did a concert for. And is that really impactful for the presidential election that, hey, I'm popular, get me to come on and introduce you so that people will vote for you? Especially if, isn't the presidential election supposed to be about what we're going to do for the country as opposed to, yes, I know all of these famous people? That's been pretty heavy on the Democratic side. And no one is challenging it, questioning it, or doing anything like that. So the next topic is, what are the two most important issues? I would say abortion for the Democrats and I would say also the border. Those are both two complex issues, and I've gone through them, so I'm not going to redo a previous podcast. What I wanted to mention, though, in the presidential election, do we really know what the candidates, the nominees, stand for? Now, I went to Ballotpedia just to see what they said on this one issue. And if you look at what President Trump said and Vice President Harris said, they're saying the same thing. And I know that that's going to shock some of you, but I want you to go and read it. Because to clarify what I'm saying, Vice President Harris says, hey, it should be the woman's choice and it should be private. President Trump is saying, okay, it should be in the hands of the people in the state and they can decide how they want to do it. So if the state says, hey, we're going to limit abortions, then the people can weigh in and get them to change it. Prime example is Missouri. They got it on the ballot. And when it passes, I think that it will, it's going to show that the people weighed in and they are making the choice to make the changes. The Democrats are also talking about character. And is this effective when a side just attacks somebody's character? And the Republicans are doing it too. On the Republican side, it's more personal attacks, which I don't agree with either of those choices because the policies, in my view, are what we should be focusing on. However, for some people, that's important, and the news agencies are really hitting those hard. Nobody is talking about the fact that the tax cuts, for example, expire at the end of next year and what they're going to do about it, right? So when the candidates are talking about it, you get a soundbite because that issue is very, very complex. And also, it depends on who is in the House of Representatives and who is in the Senate. And that is something that's just not being talked about, that it has to be the executive, the legislative that come together to raise the taxes that they're talking about on the Democratic side or keep in place what the Republicans are talking about to stimulate growth in the country through corporations instead of heavily taxing them. Have you wondered where the moderate Republicans are? This weekend, I was watching TV and the rallies and all of those types of things, and I see the Democrats have their party people out and using them as surrogates. You got Barack Obama, you've got Bill Clinton, you got Hillary Clinton. Those are all celebrity politicians. I just invented a new saying, celebrity politicians. On the Republican side, all you hear is nothing coming from the moderate Republicans. And I think that this is the first time I've ever seen that Because in 2016, when Trump was running the first time, at least some of the Republicans were surrogates. You can't find a surrogate right now that I've seen. And that's a little bit disturbing from the perspective of, hey, if Donald Trump gets elected, who's he going to put in his cabinet? We have no idea. And last time, we kind of knew on both sides. But this time, especially on the Republican side, I don't think we have any idea. And it's not being talked about. Wouldn't it be nice to see George W. Bush campaigning with Donald Trump? George W. Bush was our last two-term Republican president. And we're not talking about why that's not fitting. And I think that that's important. So, Tuesday, next week, let me check my calendar to make sure I'm telling you the right day here. Yes, next Tuesday you get to vote. And it should be exciting. And my closing remarks are, we should be proud of our process. We have the best system on the planet. And it's a little disappointing to me that there are some Americans that are angry about the process, this deep distrust of the government during this presidential election. And if you listen to talk radio, people are stressed out. This is how democracies work. You talk about things. And you should be able to filter out the garbage. I've been trying to help you to filter out the garbage and get to what these candidates are going to do if they are elected. And I really wish that the parties, meaning the Democrats and the Republicans, would really take some feedback from the people in this country to why they get stressed out and angry. And look at fixing those. What am I talking about? Why don't we trust the government? That's something that no one ever talks about, and that's important. And I hear people saying it every day, that they don't trust the government. Why is that? That's what they should be talking about during this presidential election. Also, people are angry at the government. That's not being addressed either for this presidential election. And both parties are both guilty of trying to not talk about the policies, but talk about things that won't matter in the big scheme of things to make the country more successful in the future. And that's what these presidential elections should be about. Policies, how we're dealing with our neighbors, how we're dealing with our citizens within the country. That's what we need to focus on. What do you think about that? This is my closing debate remarks for you to consider. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Have a great day and please vote.